about ready to go over there? Okay. Is that, she wasn't prepared to tape it, and that was why I never tried to take a little longer. Can everybody hear me okay? These things, you never know if they're going to work, or if you're going to get feedback, or you'll echo, or all of that. Okay, yeah, I have been gone from the States since September. And I spent 3 weeks in New Zealand doing classes there. And then I've been over here now, I guess about 3 weeks, because I did the class in Melbourne. And then I came up here. I will be the middle of November before I get back. Then I have to go again as soon as I get back. So I think I have a week off when I get there. It'll be December before I really am home for a while. No more traveling then until February. But I do go all over the world now, and I'm teaching my technique everywhere. But some of you, I know a lot of you took my class. We had a large class, and a lot of the people here are from the class. I recognize a lot of you. Is there anybody here who doesn't know what I do? What my work is all about? Well, there's a few. Okay, because I know people have the idea that I channel, and I don't channel. Some of them think I channel or that I'm a psychic. I don't do that. I'm a therapist. And what I do is past life therapy, past life research, really, past life regression. And you have pollen in here, I think, because I said my nose has been running. So pardon me if I have to keep wiping it. There's something in the air here, I think. Okay. Anyway, I do past life therapy. And I've been doing hypnosis for 40 years. I started a long, long time ago. Back in the old days when everything was simple, watch the shiny object type thing. You know, they don't do that anymore except on TV and in the movies. It's not used anymore. But I started that way 40 years ago, and then I got involved in reincarnation totally by accident, if anything is ever an accident. And that started me on this path. But it was 30 years ago that I went into past life regression exclusively. And I began doing that and finding out the great value of therapy that was there. Because I found that the majority of the problems people have don't stem from this life. They go back to other lifetimes. And so that was what I was doing, was taking people back into the other lifetimes to find the answers to the problems in this lifetime. And as I did it for 30 years, I discovered my own technique. I found a way to access the subconscious mind. I take the person into the deepest possible level of trance, which is the somnambulistic level. And the other hypnotist schools always say, you don't want to go near that level because strange things happen there. Well, those of you who read my books, you know strange things happen there. But that's where all the answers are, and that's where all the help is. And that's why I've learned how to access that. And with the technique I've developed over the past 30 years, we can have instant healings of anything. And that's what's remarkable. We can have the instant healings, and we can help the person with their problems, and it only takes one session. And that's what I've been teaching in my class that I just finished. Because you make yourself sick. The ideal state of the body should be perfect health. We make ourselves sick. And if the mind is that powerful that we can make ourselves sick, we can also cure ourselves. Once you find out why did I do this to myself? Why did I make myself sick? Why did I do this? And I have lots of people coming to me who are getting ready to have operations. And we find out why they put themselves in that position. They don't have to have the surgery. So that's what I've been teaching for this whole weekend, was my class on how to do this, how to contact that part of the mind. It's very powerful part of the mind that we can do great wonders with it. And I'm now teaching this all over the world. I taught it last year to a group of doctors in Moscow, and they're saying this is the therapy of the future. And I've done it in India and all over the world. Next year I'll be in South America and China. So it keeps spreading and spreading. It's the idea that we can take control of our own lives. We don't have to depend upon the medical profession that puts Band-Aids on things. We can do it ourselves once you understand why you make yourself sick, and you can maintain perfect health that way. So that's what I've been doing exclusively for the last 30 years. And I have a little office in a little town in Huntsville, Arkansas. And when I'm home, that's where I see clients, and they come there from all over the world. It's amazing, this little bitty town in the middle of nowhere. But when I'm traveling, I see clients, but I can't see as many because I'm on the road. But when I'm back home, that's where I do the majority of my work, when I'm not doing everything else that I'm involved with. But anyway, the subject we're going to be speaking about tonight is life after death. The book that I wrote, we had a problem. This book, we're trying to get it here. This is the American version. I've written 14 books on all of my adventures in hypnosis, all of the things I've found, all the things I've discovered. Because in my work, I don't just have one topic. I have gone through every phase of the paranormal you could think of. And later, when we get to questions, if you don't want to just ask questions about life after death, you can ask about anything you want. Because I have such a great curiosity, I want to know everything. And that's why I keep writing more and more books. I said, I don't channel, but I'm the reporter. The reporter, the researcher, the investigator of lost knowledge. So that's what I focus on. What has either never been known or has been forgotten. So that's why I've written 14 books, and I'm writing more. There's a new one supposed to come out when I get back. I have it with me on this trip. It's the third book of the Convoluted Universe. Everybody keeps saying, when's that book going to come out? But anyway, this is the American version, Between Death and Life. And we're not allowed to sell it here because it was, well, they have an English company who has the rights to Australia and England, Ireland, and Canada. So when I contacted them, they're supposed to have it here. They told me months ago they only had 120 copies. It's a different cover. So if you see it in the bookstore, it's got a pink cover. And so we tried to get it here, and they said they only had 120 copies left. They sent all they had, and they won't going to be reprinting. It won't be available again in the stores until December. Maybe it'll be in time for Christmas. So I brought a case of these with me, and I sold most of them in New Zealand. So that's the only one I have left. And I asked Patricia, should I put it out? And I know it's the only one. But you're going to say, well, where's the one she's talking about? But I call it Between Death and Life. And people always say, isn't that wrong? Shouldn't it be between life and death? Can you see the difference? There's a whole world outside of this world. Between death and life is the whole world that you live after you leave this one before you come back into another life. That's why I call it Between Death and Life. It's a whole different thing out there. So anyway, when I was doing all of this research and all of the hypnosis, I've done thousands and thousands of people. When I wrote this book, I was exploring life after death. Now I don't need to because I've already done it. I focus on the therapy. But I began finding out everybody was saying the same thing. When you go to a hypnotist for a past life regression, in order to do it correctly, they should always take you through the entire lifetime, the past lifetime, and through the death experience. This is the way it should be done. A lot of them won't do it because they're afraid. What happens if I take the person through the death experience and something happens to the body here? That's what they're afraid of until they tell there are people taking their classes, don't do it. It does not happen. It cannot happen. It cannot affect this physical body at all. I've had people die under every possible circumstance you could think of. You know, heads chopped off, burned at the stake, all the numerous wars that man has done down through time. And my book, A Soul Remembers Hiroshima, I had someone who died in the atomic bomb. So I know if what I have done does not harm this body, there's no way you can do it. So what I've done in my work, I always take the person through the entire lifetime and through the death experience. So after that, when they leave the body and they're going to the other side, I found all of them were saying the same thing. They were all describing the death experience the same way. They were always just all describing what the body felt like. And they were all describing the same places on the other side where they went. So if you have that many people saying the same thing over and over again, you know it's valid. And that's what I like to do in my work, is to have the validity of the same things repeated again and again. Even when I'm doing my research into earth mysteries and things that we don't know about, I want to ask the same people, the same questions over and over with all my subjects. We get the same answer, we're on the right track. But they all describe it the same way. And believe me, you've all done it hundreds and hundreds of times. You've all died. You've been through every possible life you can imagine. Each and every one of us have had hundreds and hundreds of past lives. You've all died. You've all gone to the other side. You've seen what it was like over there, and you've all come back again, because this is a school. Earth is a school. You come here to learn lessons. They say it's a challenging planet. It's a difficult planet. And you come to this school mostly to learn emotions and limitations. Those things don't exist on other planets. This is a very unusual planet, very difficult planet to live on, because you come here to learn emotions and limitations. But as a school, it's a school where you can't skip a grade, but you can have to take the grade over again. If you don't get it right the first time, you're going to have to do it again the next time. You don't get out of it. Have to come back and do it again. This is what karma is involved with. And I'll be explaining that as we go along. But so it's very important to understand that. But they say, it's all right. You don't have to get it right, everything. You don't have to do everything in one life. We pile too much on us. We try to do too much. We try to take on too much karma. We'll say, I'm going back, I'm going to get it all done at one time. It's not advisable. And I'll be explaining who they are, they advise you, and they'll say, it's not a good idea. You're going to take on too much. It's like going to college and taking too many classes, and you don't allow any free time, no extracurricular activity. You soon burn out, and you're so much that you can't handle it. So they say it's advisable to just do what you can. Don't worry about the rest. You can always come back the next time and work those parts out. There's always a next time. We want to get to the point that we don't have to keep coming back again and again. We can get it all finished and stay over there. But as long as you keep making mistakes and creating karma, you're going to have to come back and do it again. And there's no blame in it at all. It's not. You just say, well, I did what I could, and that's it. There is no hell. There is no hell. If I've done thousands of people and they all reported the same thing, I know where I'm talking about. Hell was invented by the church. You probably know that. But there is no hell. There's nothing but goodness, positive. It's all wonderful. Once we understand that, we won't be so fearful. I have a daughter who worked in intensive care for 20 years. She said the saddest thing was when she was working with these older people. And there'd be an old woman in there who's dying in fear, because she said, I've lived a good life, but I wasn't perfect. And the church says if I wasn't perfect, I'm going to hell. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's expected to be perfect. The only one who was perfect was crucified. You're not expected to be. But look what that's doing. It's making a perfectly good person who has lived her life the best way she can die in fear. So that's why I wanted to write this book, so people would know when I'm doing the lectures, there's nothing to be afraid of. You're not going to be sent somewhere to burn forever. You know, as most of us are parents, if your child does something wrong, are you going to throw them in the oven? No, you help them. No matter how bad it gets, even if they go to prison, you're still there for them. You want to help them. So why should the creator of everybody be any different? They'll give you every chance you can, again and again and again and again. It's up to you what you make of it and what you do with it. Stop blaming something over there that it isn't there at all. Okay, well, I'm going to start at the beginning of what it feels like when you die and where you go, and then we'll try to go step by step. And I'll leave some time at the end for you to ask some questions. Some questions are difficult, and I'm going to wait on those until somebody brings them up. But I've found the answer to just about everything I think you would want to know. And that's what the important thing is. Take the fear out of this. Okay. Now, when someone dies, the majority of the time, and even in my work, the majority of the time is just an ordinary death. Old age or illness, and they die in a hospital bed or at home. Of course, when I'm in other lives, they're dying mostly at home. But when someone dies of a very traumatic death, say war or a car accident or murder or something, they're jerked out of their body so quickly that sometimes they don't realize they've died. That's the only difference between what I'm going to describe to you. They're still okay, but they don't understand what's happened because it happened so fast. But as a rule, someone's just dying an ordinary death in their bed or in the hospital bed. First they say they feel cold. And then the next instant, they're standing by the side of the bed looking down at their body. That quickly. They said it's just like getting up from that chair and sitting down in that chair. It's so fast. It's so easy to just slip right out of the body. They're standing next to the body looking down at the body. The first thing they say is, "Gee, I didn't know I looked that bad." Then the next thing they say is, "Wow, I'm out of here. I can go anywhere I want. I can do anything I want." That the air conditioning? Okay. It's not too loud, is it? Can you hear me over it? Can you hear me over it? No, they're having trouble back there. You know how to control it? Maybe we can turn it off. Do you need it? Okay, turn it off because they can't hear over here. And even with the microphone, you can just, oh, that's why they're right by the blower. Okay. So that's the next thing they'll say is, "I'm out of here. I'm out of that body. I can go anywhere I want. I can do anything I want. This is wonderful." Do you really think they want to go back into that body? Most of the time, there's no way they can make it function again. There's no way they could bring it back to health. They don't want to be in that. We're the ones that want them to hang around. We don't think about them. We're the ones that want them to stay for us. And that's really a selfish motive. We're not thinking about them. If they're never hope they're ever going to get well, if they're too old or too diseased, can you see they really want to go? They really want to leave? I have a doctor friend. I've published 3 of his books, and as he believes also that the mind can heal the body, he says no one dies until they are ready to go. So he said when he's in the hospital and they have the code blue with somebody having a heart attack, especially if it's an old person, he takes his time getting there because he said they want to leave. And it's not our responsibility to keep them here if they really want to go. See what I'm trying to say? We have to look at it from a different perspective. But anyway, they say, I'm out of here because the true side, the spirit side, is so free, it's so beautiful, it's so wonderful, no restrictions, no limitations. And when you're in the body, it's very limiting. I've had people go into the birth experience and they don't like it at all. They say, are they turning it down? Turning it off? Okay. They say when they're coming into the body, they'll say, oh, I don't like this at all. Why did I sign on for this? They said, this is cramped, it's restricted. They said, this energy is so heavy and dense. What was I thinking of? Because over there it's so free and beautiful, and you can do anything you want. And you come into the body, you have all these limitations and restrictions. You can't go where you want to go. You can't do what you want to do because you're living within the restrictions of the life. So anyway, when they're getting ready to go, then once they realize they're out of the body, you are never alone. Nobody ever dies alone. There's always somebody to be there to show them where to go. I call these people the greeters. They could be husbands, wives, relatives, maybe friends. If not, they're your guide or your guardian angel, whatever you call it. But they're there to help the person know where they're supposed to go. You're never alone during your life either, but you don't realize that. We come into this life thinking we're all by ourselves. But when you come into a life, you are assigned a guardian angel. You call it that, I call them guides. But you're always assigned at least one whose job is to be with you through your entire lifetime. If you need anything, if you want anything, they're there to help you. You're never by yourself. And we don't realize that. I have so many clients coming to me that say, I'm all alone, there's nobody I can talk to, nobody to help me. That's not true. You have at least one that's job is to take care of you during your entire lifetime. But they can't interfere. They can only help us if you ask for help. But if you ask them for help, boy, will they take over and they will do miracles for you once you understand they're there to help you. Now, if your life is complicated, you may have more than one. You can have as many as 4. But I like to think that you have one main one that stays with you all your life. Because if your life takes a sudden turn and you go in a different direction, maybe guides will switch places. And you have another one coming in that has more expertise in the line you're going to go in. So they can switch around. But there's always one that's with you your entire lifetime. That is loud. I wish. She said they're turning it down, aren't they? Okay, because I see people nodding off here. My voice has a tendency to do that too, but I think it's because of the air too. Okay. So anyway, when you're getting ready to go, if you don't have a friend, a relative to be with you, to meet you, the greeter, your guide will be there because that's his job, to take you where you're supposed to be. So you're never by yourself. I think if we have some medical people here in the audience, you know, have you ever been, or even ordinary people here, have you ever been with someone who's dying and they see other people in the room with them? And they know who they are sometimes. And they'll tell you somebody's here. You know, they name, good. Okay. We'll just put up with it. I don't think we'll sweat to death in the next hour anyway. Okay. But if you've ever been with someone that's dying, you notice they look around the room and they see people around them. And they'll say, so-and-so is here. And the doctors always say, oh, that's just over-medication. It's depriving of oxygen. That's all it is. They're hallucinating. But I think the ones who have this happen all the time in the hospital know it happens too much to be that way. The people who have come to be with them are there in the room, and they're ready to escort them to the other side. And if you notice when this happens, they're never afraid. They just say, oh, good, look who's here. It's always an enjoyable experience. So anyway, the greeter will take you where you're supposed to go. The first thing that happens, usually, is you'll be going down a tunnel. How many of you have had near-death experiences? There's always some people in the audience all over the world, you know, even no matter what the doctors and the skeptics say, this isn't real. I've run into it too many times. I know near-death experiences are real. The only difference is you don't go all the way, but you see part of it. And the classic examples, they usually show them as going through a tunnel. And as they go through the tunnel, sometimes they're met by somebody, and it says, in a near-death experience, and they'll say, are you sure you want to go, or do you want to go back? And they're given a choice. And it's always up to them. But as they go, they can see how beautiful it is over there. And they want to go because it is extremely beautiful. So as you're going, even through a near-death experience, they say as they go through the tunnel and they see this beautiful place, they go toward a white light. They usually see a white light. Now some of the near-death experiences people have told me about, they don't go that far. They just go up above and look down at the body, like in an operating room or an accident. But they've just left the body. They haven't really having a near-death experience. But in a real near-death experience, they see a light and they go toward that light. But in a real near-death experience, you never reach the light. You're always turned around and sent back before you get to that point. So I found out why. Yeah, don't turn anything on again. Leave it off, okay. Okay, she's one of the ones that work here, as I'm saying, don't turn anything on again, okay. Okay. But they never go through the light. They always come back into the body. They'd have to or they wouldn't be alive again. So when you really die, you go through that white light. You may call that white light God, whatever you want to call it. It's a huge energy force. So when you die, you go through that white light. And do you know you are connected with the silver cord? Most of you know that. You have a silver cord that connects your body and your soul, your spirit, the entire time you're alive. When you have out-of-the-body experiences, people can see the silver cord. But that connects you to the body the entire time you're alive. Every night you go out of your body. That's the fun time. Because the real you is the spirit, the soul. The body's what gets tired. And the real you, your spirit, would get awful bored sitting around waiting for you to wake up so it can continue with what it's doing. So when the body goes to sleep, the real you goes out of the body and you can do all this exploring The same thing that happens when you die and when you go to the near-death experiences. You can go to the other side, you can see everything over there, or you can go anywhere on Earth you want to go, or you can explore other planets. You do this every night. And the only way you remember it is if you're having dreams of flying or unfamiliar places. But we all do it. But in the morning then, when it's time to wake up, it's like you're reeled in, because the silver cord will always bring you back to the body that you occupy. So it's like reeling you in every morning. So when you die and you go through that white light, that energy force is so strong that it cuts the silver cord at that time. The silver cord is dissolved, and that means you cannot return to the physical body. And as soon as the spark of life is gone, the physical body begins to deteriorate. There's nothing there anymore. Then you're on the other side. And they always describe it the same way. It's extremely beautiful. But there is no pain associated with death. Only the physical body experiences pain from whatever it's dying of. But the pain is left with the physical body. The minute you're out of it, there's no more pain. The soul cannot, I'm trying to figure out whether to call it the soul or the spirit, but you know what I'm talking about, the real you. It cannot experience pain. The only thing that is the equivalent of pain is remorse. I should have done it better. I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I'd done this instead. You have this feeling of regret and remorse. That's the only feeling. It could be the equivalent of pain. So when you go over there, the first thing that happens is you're shown your life. You have your guides, your guardians, you have your masters, you have your elders. It's like a whole board over there, a whole council. It's a good thing somebody runs the place. And they have all the records of everything that has ever happened to you. Kind of like a gigantic computer system. Nothing is ever lost. It even says that in the Bible. Nothing is lost. It's all retained. So the first thing they do is show you your life. You look at it. And you say, oh boy, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done that. And you start seeing all the events that happen in your life. But even more, you're shown your life from the viewpoint of all the other people in your life. Can you imagine what that would be like? All the people in your life, you see it from their viewpoint, looking at you. That's when it hurts. Because you say, I didn't know I hurt them like that. I didn't know what I said affected them that way. So that's when you begin to see, I made mistakes. I did things that were wrong. This is what's called karma. It's a law of balance. What goes around comes around. What you do to someone else must be repaid. There's no way out. It has to go around. It has to come back. You have to work it out. If you don't work it out in this lifetime, you're going to have to come back next lifetime with the same people and do it all over again. Is that what you want? Or would you rather work it out now so you don't have to worry about coming back next time? Sometimes with my clients, just telling them that you're going to come back and do it with the same people is enough to shake them up. I don't want that. Well, then you better settle it now before you get out of this life, because you're confronted with it. You all know people you've seen, and they'll say, how can they get away with that? With whatever they've done? They don't get away with it. They have to repay it somewhere down the line. And time is speeding up now to where we have to do this now, in this life, where before we could wait till the next time around. But now we're having to take care of all this stuff now. But anyway, you see all of this. And then you talk with these other souls, the ones that you've seen you've done something you shouldn't have done. And you say, well, we didn't do such a good job, did we? We kind of messed up. You want to come back and do it again? This time you be the husband, I'll be the wife. You be the mother, I'll be the daughter. You can switch roles around all over the place. It doesn't make any difference. You're just playing a part anyway. It's all a game anyhow, it's just a play. When I've had people go through the death experience, they'll look back at it and they'll say, it was just a play. It was just a game. I see all the people on the stage playing their parts, and I see all the people in the wings getting ready to come on and play their parts. But while I was there, it was so serious, and I felt it so much. But now I look at it, and it was like a blink of an eye. So we understand that we are just in a game. We're in a school, we're in a game, and you can see it from a different perspective. I think it makes a big difference. So they say, okay, we'll come back and do it again, and you make your nice little plan of what you're going to do. You make a contract with these people. The people in your life, you have a contract with them. This is what we're going to try to work out. The problem is we come into this life with our nice little plan all wrapped up like a Christmas package. I'm going to do it, you know. They'll say, I'm going to take care of it all at one time. I don't want to have to do this again. The over there, it's so clear. Makes a lot of sense. Then we get ready to come back, and we're coming into the life. We've got all of this I'm going to do. I've had them go through the birth experience, and they're saying, I got to remember. I got to remember. I got to remember. And then they're born, and they'll say, I don't remember anymore. Because as soon as you come in, all the memory is erased of the other side. And I asked them one time, wouldn't it be easier if we knew what we were supposed to do when we came in? If we could remember, and if we knew the connection with all the other people that we're involved with, wouldn't that be a lot easier? They said, no, it wouldn't be a test if you knew the answers. It's just a school. So we come in with all the memory erased and have to start all over again. And they said Earth is a planet of free will. So we come in with our nice little plan. It was given free will on purpose. We come in with our nice little plan. Everybody else has got their little plans. And it clashes together. So it doesn't always work out the way we think it's going to work out. But all we can do is the best we can. People will die and they'll say, I had it all figured out. What happened? Life happened. But the interesting thing about it is when you're over there and you're looking at your lifetime, seeing what you did and didn't do, there is no one sitting on a throne who is going to judge you and punish you. You judge yourself. And there's no harsher judge than you yourself. You're the one that decides, okay, this is how I'm going to pay this back. Doesn't that make it harder? It's easier to say, well, God did this to me, you know. You did it. You wrote the script. You wrote the play. You're the one that decided what was going to happen in your life. You can't blame it on somebody else. If things don't go the way you planned, you can change it. But don't blame it on somebody up there who is judging you and punishing you. It doesn't happen. You judge yourself and you punish yourself. If you want to call it punishment, they just say it's another lesson. They say all it has to do with experience, learning, lessons. That's all it is. You don't get it right this time, come back and do it again. Hopefully you'll get it right the next time. Or you're in a rut. You're going to have to keep going over and over. And I have clients who are like that. They have been on the same contract with the same people for many, many lifetimes, and they're still not working it out. And it's like, well, for Pete's sakes, when are you going to get it right here? Or just say, I'm going to tear up the contract. It's not going to work. You can do either one. Once you realize that's what's happening, that's what you're doing. Okay. Now I want to talk about where you go on the other side. I found 3 different levels that you can go to. Now, you only go as far as your vibration or frequency will take you. Whatever you have adjusted to. And this all has to do with the way you've lived your life, what you've done in your life, whether you're going to go back to the same level you left, or you're going to. They said this is, I think I told you that, this is a school where you can't skip a grade, but you can take it over again. You're going to have to go back to a lower grade and then start up from there, or do you want to keep coming up the ladder until you graduate? Which way do you want to do it? So it's all up to you on these lessons. I lost a thought there. It'll come back in just a minute here. Okay. Sometimes I have so much information coming into my head, it kind of overwhelms me. Okay. Now what was I at? I was at the levels. Okay, the levels. Okay. Now the first level that I have found, I call the lower astral. I don't think there's anybody in this room that is going to be at the lower astral. These are the people who are so deep into negativity. That's how they live their life. You all hear about these people. The ones who are the drug addicts and the alcoholics and the murderers and the criminals, they're so caught up into that when they die, they don't even know they've died. They think they're still physical. They can't understand, why can't I feel the same things? Why can't I do the same things? They're very confused. And they keep trying to be around the same things that they just left, whether it's a bar, a tavern, or whether people in an alley shooting up with a heroin. They're trying to hang around that because that's all they knew. And they're trying to get the same sensations by osmosis that they had. They never reached a level of understanding to know there was more. This is what's called the lower astral. You might even say it's the earthbound spirits, because they don't know there's anything else. The greeter, the one who has come to take them, help show them where to go, is there, but they aren't paying any attention to him because they don't know they've died. They just think, I can get back into this. You see the difference? This is a totally confused spirit realm. Like there is no hell, but they don't know what's going on with them. So the greeter is there, and he's just waiting patiently for them to finally get tired of this. After a while, the spirit begins to realize, this isn't any fun. I'm not having the same sensations I was having. I can't get back into that body. I can't do the things I thought I was doing. This isn't any fun anymore. And they start getting bored with it. Then they will see the greeter. And he says, well, it's about time now, you're ready to go on to where you're supposed to go. Stop fooling around here. Then they take them to where they're supposed to be. And there's a lot of places over there on the other side where those go. One is the spiritual hospital, where they are worked with. And it takes a lot of spirits there with a great deal of patience to work with those who have led a life of negativity, because they got to bring them out of that. You can't be allowed to reincarnate quickly if you've led a life like that, because you're still trapped in those feelings. You understand what I mean? That it's not enough time to get out of it, so they have to work with you before they'll allow you to reincarnate again, because otherwise you make the same mistakes all over again. So this is the lower astral. And I said, I don't think there's anybody here that has to worry about going there. The next level is the middle astral. This is the part that I think comes as close to what the church defines as heaven as you can. It's very, very beautiful. They've all described it the same way. There are hills, there's a beautiful lake, and on the hills are every kind of house you could possibly imagine, from a cottage to castles. There are beautiful gardens, and there's music in the air. This is what most people consider heaven. The flowers have a color that you can't define. They said if you could imagine the most perfect, beautiful rose that ever existed, that's what it's like. And I said, well, is it like on Earth? Is it a reflection of Earth? And they said, no, Earth is a very poor reflection of over there. And over there, if you could imagine flowers and things that never die, they would just be extremely beautiful. Those of you who have had near-death experiences, people talk about remembering the vibrant colors when they come back. I've talked to many that say when they come back, they can see the molecules of everything, the leaves and everything around them, and the colors are still very vibrant until they get adjusted back into this world. They carry the memory of the colors over there, and it's extremely beautiful. Well, if you go to that part, you may want to continue the same life you had, and that's your idea of heaven. You can live in any kind of house you wanted. Maybe you say, well, I want to live in a house like I just left. I want to live with my family. I want to live with my friends. Then you're continuing on the same life that you left. Maybe that's your idea of heaven. Whatever your idea of heaven is. But you can do anything over there. There's wonderful things you can do. It's a very packed place, not dull at all. But if this is your idea of heaven, you will go to be a situation like you just left. Or if you want to live in a castle, that's fine too. But it's your idea of what the ever after is like. But it doesn't last. Sooner or later, someone from the board, the masters and the elders, will come knocking at the door. And they'll say, it's time to go up and look at your life, and you're going to have to make your decisions. And they'll say, no, I like this just fine. I just want to stay here. This is fine. But you can't, because you have to pay back. The cycle, you can't stay. You have to come back and repay all of these things. And that's when they take them up there and show them all these things, and they're going to have to decide, all right, I'm going to have to go back with these different people. And you make your contracts and you sign your contracts to come back with these people. That's the middle astral. And this is where a lot of people go who still don't know there is more. But as I said, you will only go to the level that you are vibrating at, that your frequency is. If your frequency has gone down, you're going to go down to a lower level. If it's gone up, you will go to the next level. The third level is the upper astral. That's my favorite place. That is so beautiful. That's where all the schools are, and all the libraries, and all the schools, and all the knowledge. To me, that's heaven. I guess because I love research so much. I love libraries. I want to learn. That's my idea of heaven anyway. I think the most boring thing would be the idea is after you die, you float around on a cloud playing a harp. There's an angel playing a harp. That, to me, would be so boring. I think you'd get tired of that after a while. So to me, heaven would be, the afterlife would be going to school and getting to learn everything. It is absolutely wonderful over there. That's my part, the upper astral. Now when you go to the upper astral, and I've had hundreds of people go there, and they all describe it the same way, that there's what is called the Temple of Wisdom Complex. It's a whole series of buildings. And one of the first places you can go as you arrive there is called the Healing Temple. Now the Healing Temple is like a dome-shaped building. They always show a long line of people coming in with their greeters, their guides with them. And it's a long line coming into this round room that has a dome on top. And in the dome are all these beautiful different colored stones. And the light comes through these stones and makes a multicolored pattern on the floor. It's very, very beautiful. I've had somebody else see it from the outside, and they said the colors are shooting out into the air on the outside of it. But anyway, all of these places on the upper astral have their guardian that is there, and they'll take you and show you, what do you want? You know, they're always asking me when we come there, what do you want to see? You know, and they'll take us to where we want to see. So the guardian of the Healing Temple, as the person, say the person has died in a traumatic way, or if they've died from a lingering illness, the first thing they have to do before they can go on is go through the Healing Temple. And as they walk through the line, they stand in the center of the room. All of this beautiful colored lights come down and form beautiful colors on the floor. You stand in the middle of that, and it's like washing over you. And it washes every trace of any negativity, anything, everything, anything that's left hanging on is washed away at that point before they can go on, and they'll show them where they have to go. But it's really beautiful. And they told me I could be doing a great service to people by telling them you don't have to die to go to this place. If you have an illness or something, if you want to go to the Healing Temple, you can be healed there. All you have to do is know the description and see it in your mind, what it looks like. And you see yourself there and going up to it. And you can be there. You can do it in your sleep. You can do it before you go to sleep. You can program your dreams. I want to go there while I'm sleeping. And you will be there, and they will work with you. And they told me this would be very important for me to tell people this place does exist and it's accessible. They know you haven't died because they can see your silver cord trailing behind you. So they know, okay, you're going to have to go back to a body. But it's okay, you're allowed access to this place. So another part of this Temple of Wisdom complex is the tapestry room. And if you remember, if some of you read my Nostradamus books, I talk about the tapestry room. It's also mentioned in Between Death and Life, because it's a huge, enormous tapestry that goes it said it goes way, way up, and it goes as far as you can see. We have never been allowed to go all the way to the end because they say that part, there's things there you're not ready to know yet. But it's a huge tapestry, has all kinds of pictures and scenes woven into it. And there's a guardian of the tapestry room. And the one who is doing this, there'll be classes there, and he's explaining what the tapestry room represents. They said on the other side of the tapestry is our version of time. And people go to the tapestry room, especially if they're artists, sculptors. They said they go there and get ideas for paintings because everything is there. It is just in this tapestry. But they said every single person has a thread in that tapestry. Some of the threads are like tiny little threads. Other ones are like ropes. Other ones are like cables. Depends on your life. What are you doing? Some of the threads start out very small and they grow as they go through the tapestry. But the important thing is you all have a thread. It's all interwoven. So you're an individual, but yet we're all connected. We're all one. See what I mean? It's a perfect example of how we're one, but yet we're all connected. Does that make sense to you? We're all part of each other. We can never really separate from each other because we're all together. And it's an example of how we are all connected. So this was what that tapestry represents. And you all have a thread in there. Okay. Because all of these rooms have lessons that they're trying to teach people. It's like schools that you go to after you die. So the another place is the library. And that is really my favorite place. And they've all described it pretty much the same. It's a very huge library. If you want to look at books, or if you want to look at scrolls, you can. The Akashic records are also part of this library. But in this library is all knowledge. Everything that has ever been and everything that ever will be. All knowledge is there. Everything that is known and everything that is not known. And when I go there and the guardian comes and he says, what do you want to know now? And he takes us and shows us the information. And that's where I get a lot of the things I write about. Because to me, that's a fascinating place. But if you don't want to go and read, all the way all around the side are rooms. You can go into the room and ask to see a certain thing, and it'll be shown on the walls like a holograph. It's kind of like the holodeck on Star Trek. And you be in the middle of it. And you can see it happening around you, and you can participate if you want to. And so some of the things I've written about, the person goes into the room and they see these things all around them. So you can get knowledge in many different ways. By the books or by going into the room and asking questions. They said I was only limited by the questions. All I have to do is come up with a question and I can have the answer to anything I want to know. I said, you don't tell me that. Because I want to know everything, and that's why I'm constantly writing more and more books. I want to find all these things out. So the library to me is a very important, beautiful place. Then you have the schools. And there are guides, there are elders and masters there who were teaching every subject you could think of. They said you could learn absolutely anything. There's no limitations at all. So I said, okay, if you can learn everything over there, why do you have to come to Earth? Couldn't you just stay over there in that beautiful setting and learn everything there? They said, no, because when you come to Earth, you learn it faster. You learn it quicker. You could learn it over there, but it's going to take a lot longer. You learn it faster by being in the physical body. Remember I said that Earth is a challenging planet and we come here to learn emotions and limitations. That's main things. But they said over there, it'd be like book learning versus hands-on experience. You know when you go to college, you learn about chemistry? And you can read about chemistry in the book, but do you really understand it till you go into the laboratory and start mixing the chemicals together? That's a difference, isn't there? You can make mistakes too that way. Or when you're learning about auto mechanics, how to repair an engine, you can read the book, look at the pictures, but you learn more by tearing the motor apart, don't you? And putting it back together again. That's book learning versus hands-on. So when you're deciding to come back and you're talking about all these things, you say, okay, this sounds easy. Jealousy, hate, love, I can handle that, I can do that. No problem, no big deal. It sounds simple when you're looking at the book. And when you're over there, you're not involved. But what happens when you get to Earth? You feel the emotions. And you're interacting with everybody else who is also feeling these emotions, and everything is clashing. That's where the lessons are. Can you see how you learn so much more? By coming back and experiencing it firsthand. And then all the memories are gone, so all you know is right here. They said Earth is a strange planet because it's about the only one that they know of where you come in with everything erased. All of the other planets, all of the other beings know their connection to Source. We call it God, they all call it Source. They all know how they're connected with Source. They all know why they've come to their different lives. They have all this knowledge. And they also know they're never alone because they know they're connected with that powerful Source. But they said, you people come to Earth with all of this erased, and you think you're all alone. You think there is no Source. You don't think you're connected at all. Because they said, imagine what a test that is for people to think they're all by themselves and have to find their way back all by themselves. That is a tremendous thing. So they admire us for doing it. We have to discover it all on our own. What they've known all along is that we're all part of God. We're all part of the Source. And we're always protected. We're always connected. We come in thinking we're just individuals with no knowledge at all. So they said they admire us for taking the chance to do this anyway. But anyway, we make all of our plans and then we come back. And we come in with these contracts. Okay, we'll be husband, wife, we'll be mother, daughter, or you can be my friend. I'll meet you at this certain corner in this certain day, and we'll be friends from then on. Nothing is an accident. Everything is all planned. But as I said a while ago, the best laid plans can go awry because everybody else has got their plans and everything clashes. So we come into the body. Now, you have two choices when you're going to come back into the body. First, you're assigned to this body, this baby that's going to be developing here. You pick your parents. You can't blame it on anybody else. And I hear kids all the time saying, I didn't choose to be born into this family, and I didn't write this script. You do. For whatever reason, maybe other lifetimes, maybe karma, you choose your parents. You choose the circumstances you'll be born under, rich, poor, whatever. What country? What is the best environment for me to fulfill what I'm supposed to do? What kind of social structure should it be? Where should I do this? You make all those plans when you're deciding to come back, as well as the plans with all the other people you'll be meeting with. Even someone who is adopted knows this when they come in. They choose the parents for the biological body that they're going to be going into, the features and everything. And they also know the ones who's going to adopt them, who will raise them. So this is all planned out beforehand. But then I say sometimes things can go wrong too, but it's set up that way. This is the parents who will give me the biological body. These are the ones who will raise me. So this is all planned before you ever come into the lifetime. You're going, okay, I'm going to bring this in now before I forget it, because sometimes things just go zip right through my mind here. Okay, there are more souls in line for the handicapped bodies than for the normal bodies. Can you understand why? Why are there more souls in line for the handicapped bodies than for the normal bodies?
People are always asking for a healthy job.
You can repay more karma by being in a handicapped body than you can in a normal body. Look what you teach other people, besides what you're learning yourself. And a lot of time it is karma. Maybe you've hurt people, and this is one way you get rid of so much at one time. But what do you teach the people who take care of you? Whether it's your parents, or if it's your caretakers, if you're in an institution, you're teaching people something by being in a handicapped body. But also, what do you teach everybody you come in contact with? Everybody who sees you. Everybody's learning a lesson of some kind. How do you react when you see somebody in a wheelchair? Or you see a retarded child? Or somebody without arms or legs? How do you react? That's what they're teaching everybody you come in contact with. That's how they're repaying huge amounts of karma back. And you must remember, they chose that for a reason. Sometimes it's the parents. There's all kinds of ways this can intertwine. I always think when I see somebody like that, I always think, gee, you really picked a hard one this time, didn't you? Because you begin to see it from a different viewpoint. Now, when you are born, too, especially when you come into a life, you have to be everything before you're finished. One life cannot possibly do it. There's so many lessons you have to learn. I'm not even going to go back into the animals and all of that, because you have to be everything before you're finished. But if you understand we're all a part of everything, it makes us respect the earth more. It makes us take the environment more seriously, the ecology, because we're all interconnected with the earth. Earth is a living being. Everything is interconnected. All of our souls, all of our spirit, everything is all working together. But anyway, when you come into a human body, after you've had these other ones, you come direct from source. Maybe I better go back to that first, before I get into what's like to be born. But you come direct from source. I have had so many people now who are going directly back to God instead of going to past lives or going back to the beginning. And I've got a whole section on this in the new book that I'm writing. But they say it's time for us to know these things. When they go back to the source, it is beautiful. It's this huge light. And it is so wonderful. They're all together. And they said it's love beyond anything you can possibly imagine. The love and compassion there is just so wonderful, they don't ever want to leave. They're all together, and that to them is all they want. But in the very, very beginning, God wanted to learn. He wanted to know. He wanted to experience. And when he did that, he burst out. A lot of people think this goes along with the Big Bang theory and the scientists of the beginning of the universe. He burst out, and when that happened, all of these particles and sparks flew out in all different directions. Some of these sparks and particles became galaxies, universes. Some of them became planets. Other ones became your individual souls. When you take it all the way back to what you really are, it's just a tiny little spark. That's what we call the spark of life. That's all you really are in the beginning. And you were sent out to learn, to experience. Learn it all and then bring it back to God, bring it back to source. That's why there's no bad, there's no good, it's just experience. I tell people everybody has something bad that happens in their life. This is normal, we all do. But what did you learn from it? Think about it. If you learned even one thing, that was the reason for the whole thing. Everything is about experience. It's all about learning. What do you get out of it? So what we are learning through countless, countless lifetimes in accumulating all this information, we will eventually return full cycle and take it back to God. That's the ultimate, when we all return back to where we started out. But we began on our journey, these little tiny sparks, and we have to learn everything. That means everything. You've all lived on other planets, you've all lived in other dimensions, you've had bodies that are just like light with just soul energy. You've been animals, you've been plants, because we have to experience everything. We have to know what it's like. We have to accumulate the information. So when we finally get to the point we're going to come into a human body, you have to be male and female many, many times. And I usually have men that get upset when I say that. They get angry. They say, "What do you mean? I've always been a man. I've never been a woman." But what would you learn if you were always just one sex through many, many lifetimes? The spirit doesn't have a sex anyway. It's neutral. It's all about experience. If you had always been a man or always been a woman, you would never know what the other was all about. You wouldn't know the balance. This is one reason I've found for homosexuality. They have been one sex too many times in other lifetimes. They come into this life as the opposite sex. They're uncomfortable. They don't know what feels. They don't know how to deal with it. You hear people saying, "I feel like I'm a woman trapped in a man's body." That's why, because it's maybe the first time they have attempted that. If you understand these things, it causes so much more understanding, I think, with people. But anyway, you have to be male and female many, many times. You have to try it all. See, you are not a body. You have a body. This is just a suit of clothes you're wearing right now. Just a costume in this play. No matter how much you like it, like any suit of clothes, eventually it's going to wear out. When it wears out, you're going to have to throw it away. Then you just get another suit of clothes for the next role you're going to play in the next play. You see what I mean? That's why it's so unimportant when you really start thinking about that. You just get rid of one and get another one. So, as you go through this, you have to be male and female many, many times. You have to be rich and poor. You have to live on every continent in the world. You have to be every religion in the world. You have to be every race in the world. You have to know what it's all about. You can't do that in one lifetime. It's pretty hard to do. And I think if people realize this, there wouldn't be the prejudice, there wouldn't be the judging that we experience, because the very thing they are prejudiced against, the religion or the race or whatever, may be what they're going to come back as next time. Karma goes around, comes around. You spend too much time judging one race, one religion, one class, you're going to have to come back and do that to see what it's like. Doesn't that make more sense? Goes around, comes around. There's no getting out of it. If we understood that, I think it would take away a lot of the prejudice, a lot of the judging we do. It would certainly have a lot to do with stopping wars. If we understand we're all just part of this whole thing. I had one client who was a black man, and he went back to a lifetime where he was a gladiator in Rome, and he was killing, the people. You know how they do in Rome in the Roman days. His job was just for sport to kill everyone, and he didn't like it. He wanted out of it. He was tired of the killing. But guess who he was killing in the arena? They were black slaves that had been brought in for Africa. So he comes back as a black man. See, it balances. Everything has to balance out. I think if you understood that, we'd all be a lot kinder to everybody because, like I said, we leave, we see what it's like from the other people we were involved with. We understand the rules of reincarnation. It makes so much sense. I wish the church hadn't taken it out. You know, originally, every religion in the world had reincarnation as its basis. It did. Every religion in the world had reincarnation and its principles as its basis. Then, as time went on, man came in, began to make rules and regulations and changing everything around, and they took a lot of it out of the Christian religion. Some of it's still there, but it makes so much sense. When you understand these things, I think you can put it all together and it makes so much sense. The rules are so clear. Okay, we're coming down almost to 3:30. I want to begin to have you ask questions, but I want to take you through the birth experience next. So you're getting ready to come into the life with your nice little plan. This is what I got to do. Don't want to make the same mistakes again. I don't want to goof up. I want to do this and get out of here. Even though your guides may have told you, you're piling too much on your plate. But still, you know, you're stubborn. Well, I can do it. So you're coming in. All right. You've been assigned to that baby because that was your contract. I picked my parents. I picked my circumstances. I know my country. I'm going to be born, and I'm going to come into this family. So you're assigned to that baby because you've made your contract. But they don't like being in the fetus. Imagine a free spirit have to be suddenly cramped into a tiny little growing, developing a baby. I've had them say that. They'll say, I've got arms that are going to be arms, I've got legs that are going to be legs, but they don't like it because it's too cramped. They don't have to stay in the fetus the whole 9 months. The baby lives off of the mother. It is connected to the mother. It does not have to have the developing soul in the fetus until it's born, because it is living off of the mother. It's moving, it's existing, but the mother is what's keeping it alive. So sometimes they're there, or they're going back and forth to the spirit side, but they don't have to be in the body until they're finally born. So I've had mothers tell me that when they're pregnant, they see shadows in their house sometimes. And I said, all that is the spirit that's going to be coming into the baby, and it's just hanging around, you know, waiting for its turn. A lot of them, when I take them back, they know everything that the mother is thinking. They know everything that's going on in the house because they're right there the whole time. But they don't need to be in the body. Now, when you go to have the baby and you're going through the birth experience, the soul has two choices of how it wants to be born. If it wants to experience being born, it'll go into the fetus before it's born. And they don't like it. Believe me, it's not a comfortable experience. But if they want to say, well, I've done that, now next time we'll do it this other way, they can. Because I've had them going through the birth experience. There's a lot of pain and pressure on the head. There's pressure on the shoulders. Sometimes they can't breathe. It's a very uncomfortable experience. But if that is what they want to experience, they will go through the birth process. It's a choice. The other choice is to wait till the baby is born and then enter the soul. Because as long as it's still connected to the mother, it's all right. The minute it disconnects from the mother, it must have the spark of life in it, or it'll be stillborn. So it has to enter usually within so many minutes after the baby's born, or it's too late. It has to get in there. And I've had some of them, the baby's born and they're sitting, I don't know if I want to go. I don't know, do I really have to go? Still trying to back out at the last minute. do I really have to do this? I don't know, I'm changing my mind. Maybe I'd rather stay on the other side. And their guides are right there saying, no, you signed the contract, you got to go. Now you go now. And they're pushing them into the body. But a lot of them are having a lot of last minute regrets. Do I really want to do this? And that's what happens sometimes when they have a hard time getting the baby to breathe. It's the last minute holding back. But then they do enter the body and they are born alive. Okay. So, if you ever notice with babies, they sleep a lot, especially up until 2 years old. There's a lot of sleeping going on. This is because when they're asleep at night, the soul is still going back and forth to the other side, getting last minute instructions, meeting with their guides and guardians, and things like they don't want to stay in that any longer than they have to. But it comes a point they have to. This is another reason why you go out of your body every night. You still like being connected to that other side. So they go in and out and they sleep a lot up until they're about 2 years old. And if you notice too, this is one of the reasons the knowledge is taken away, but in the beginning the baby can't talk. Even if it remembered anything, it can't tell you anything. It's very frustrating. And it has to take 2 years to get the body to talk, to move, to be able to walk. And by that time, it's so concentrating on the body that everything else fades away anyway. So by the time they're about 2 years old, they're really set in the body and everything's going to be okay. Now, sudden infant death syndromes are just, it changes his mind. Says, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is not the circumstances I wanted to be born into. I changed my mind, so I'm breaking the contract and I'm out of here. And in the meantime, maybe the parents and everything have learned something from this. No experience is ever lost. There's always a lesson in everything that happens. So anyway, then also, do you notice older people, as they get older, sleep a lot? Sometimes they fall asleep sitting in the chair. They're sleeping a lot. This is because they're getting ready to make the transition and go on. And they're communicating with the other side, saying, I'm getting ready to come over there, this is this and this and this. You're making plans for it. So it's the same thing. You start sleeping a lot because they're getting ready to go on and setting the stage and what's going to happen. Now, when you come in and you make your contract, you also, part of your contract is an exit contract. You have to have a way to get out of this. You got to have an exit. You got to have a way to get out of the body. So you decide what it is you want to do. And it's part of the contract. And you've had hundreds and hundreds of lives, and you say, well, I haven't been run over by a train before. Maybe I'll try that this time. Or, maybe I'll go out with this big explosion when we have hundreds of us go out together. That'd be interesting. But see, you're looking at it totally unemotional when you're making these plans anyway. And they say these mass disasters, when everybody go at once, they have all made the agreement. We're going to come in together. They may not know each other, but they say, okay, when the time comes, we're all going to go out together. But it's always set in motion as a plan. And you always hear about some people who don't get there. They're on their way there. The World Trade Center was a perfect example. Some of them didn't get there for different reasons, and they weren't caught up in it. They weren't supposed to be there. But the ones who had made a contract coming in, this is how we'll go out. For whatever reason, whatever lesson is supposed to teach the world, whatever. But nothing happens by accident. It's always tried to plan it out ahead of time. Okay, so I think I've gone full circle. But in when you finish this, you are going back and forth many, many times. You're learning all these different things. And when I was saying a while ago about how you have to be all these things, usually people start looking a little distressed, and unhappy in the audience. But I think when you get to this point where you're asking questions and you want to learn more, you have finished all of that. And now you're on your way out. Because now you understand what's going on and you understand the process. This way, between all of these lives, you're going back and forth between each life. When you finally learn it all and you get where you don't need to come back into the physical anymore, then you go to the other side and stay there and progress upward in those levels, because there's a whole lot of more knowledge you can learn as you progress upwards. Then, when you finally have learned everything you can possibly learn, you return to the source with everything you have learned. And that's why I said there's no good, there's no bad, it's just experiences. What did you learn? What did you learn not to do? What did you correct? But you must pay all this back, or you're going to keep coming back again and again before you get back to God, back to the source. Everybody returns there with everything. You're just a computer, you're just an accumulator of knowledge. I said it's like a cell. We're all cells in the body of God. We're all circulating the way a cell does and carries knowledge. That's all we are. And they said our bodies are just containers of a whole universe inside of us. All the cells are doing the same thing. The other day I was having a session, and I'm going to put this in the new book, and it says this shows how little you really understand is how everything has consciousness. Everything. Everything is alive. Everything is aware. And they said if you take it all the way down to the tiniest fibers in a rug and isolated that tiny fiber, inside that fiber are universes. More and more and more. So it goes from the microcosm all the way to the macrocosm. There is no limit. So there's so many places to go and so many things to learn. And that's what I'm writing about. I get more and more information. It keeps broadening what I'm finding. But I think I've gone full circle with the life after death. So if you want to ask some questions, I said there's some questions I didn't cover because I always wait for people to bring them up, because some of them are kind of touchy. Okay. And my problem being over here is the accents. I hear English and I'm thinking, it's English, but I can't understand the words. So in New Zealand, I had a terrible time. That was even worse than here. So if I might ask somebody else up here to repeat what you're saying, I'll try to understand the best I can, okay? Suicides? Okay. That's one of the questions that I always stay away from unless somebody really wants to know. Okay. The only thing wrong with suicide is because you break a contract. You come in with your plan. You come in with something you intend to do. By committing suicide, you break the contract and disrupt other people's lives. But you are not condemned. You know, the church is always saying that you go to purgatory, and they won't even bury them in hallowed ground. No, it hasn't got anything to do with that. I always say if they would just wait one more day, sometimes things are different. But they think they've taken on more than they can handle. That's what I said earlier. They tell them, don't try to do it all at one time. You can't. Do it as you can do it. Do all you're expected. You're not expected to do it all. You take on too much. It's usually someone who has taken on too much in their life. There's something that they can't handle, and they think this is the only way out. When they cross to the other side, they are met with great love. There's no condemning, there is no judging. The angels and the guides that meet them know what they went through, and they'll say, well, you had too much on your plate. But they're met with great love, they're not condemned. But we're told you're going to have to go back and do it again. There's no way out. They have to come back and repeat it again. But there is no punishment, condemning. But that's all it is. They just made a mistake, so they have to do it over again.
Does that include people who write notes and tidy everything up? They know they're going to go. So does that include those people, or do those people, are they aware that it's time for them to go for other people to learn a lesson?
Can you hear the questions? Okay, I don't know how much. No, that's a different thing, because those are people, maybe they're getting intuitions and feelings that they know this is it, they're going to be leaving. They're not doing anything to hurry it up. But I asked them about, what about euthanasia? When people are old and they're sick and they don't want to be here anymore. Well, the worst thing you can do is hook people up to machines, because their soul is really out, and you're keeping part of it attached. And this, I know my daughter in intensive care said the people come in, the family, and they said, but they're still alive, they're breathing. The machine is doing it. It's not them that are doing the breathing, they're not alive. And they're really worn out. It's time for them to go, and we're holding them here. So they said, it's the wrong thing to do to hook them up to machines and to force them to stay alive. Like I said earlier, that one doctor, he said he just took his time getting to the room, especially if it was older people, and he would tell the family, let grandma go, she wants to go, you know. But no, that wouldn't be suicide if they have a feeling something's going to happen and they're, you said, tidying up and getting ready. It's on another level, they know something is going to happen. But you're never condemned for anything. It's always a reason, which I guess could bring up murder, if you want me to go into that. I try not to go too much in this. Okay. They said murder is an example of what not to do. If you didn't have anything to show you what is not socially acceptable, you wouldn't have any examples. You have the murder, okay. Now, next time around, what happens with murder and victim? What's the best way to solve that when you come back again? Because a lot of people say, you kill me, so I'll kill you. That just keeps the wheel of karma going. They said the best way to solve it with murderer and victim is what they call the soft way. Suppose the murderer had to come back and take care of his victim the rest of his life. That's what's called the soft way. He couldn't have a life of his own. He had to devote his life taking care of a retarded child, taking care of a handicapped. See what I meant a while ago about the handicapped children and bodies? That the person had to devote their life to taking care of that child or that person. They couldn't have a life of their own. Maybe they have to take care of their mother. Their mother is living with them and they can't live their own life. Maybe these are murderer and victims. You see what I mean? They said this is the soft way to do it. About a month or so ago, I saw something on Dr. Phil that brought this home to me so clearly. It was this one where the mother and father had the triplets. You saw that, the triplets? The three girls that were about, 4 or 5 years old. They were blind and deaf. Kind of like Helen Keller was, but these were blind and deaf, 3 of them. And they were 4 or 5 years old, and the father kept saying, they don't even know I'm there. He said, it's a horrible situation trying to take care of these children. And it was like he was wanting to get out. And you know, the men are always the ones that want to get out, and then the wife is the one that's left, the mother's left taking care of all of this. But the interesting thing about it, they were showing the videos of how miserable their life was, and the children didn't even know they were there because they had no communication with them. So he made an interesting remark. He said, I have no life of my own. It's like I have to devote my life to these children, and I don't have any life of my own. I can't work, I can't do anything. And that hit home. So what do you think that was? These were 3 of his victims. And because time is speeding up, things are changing. Things are are going faster. Now we had 3 of them come in instead of 1 at a time. It makes sense, but it was karma there. That's one way that the murderers and victims can repay each other. They have a logic we could never understand. I'm glad we don't have to be the one to make the decisions. They have, like, I think they got a computer up there that does it, or they figure it all out, but we couldn't figure those things out. But if you look at each individual case differently, you'd be surprised what you find. I had okay, I'm going to get over here in a minute. I had a friend who had a child who was a vegetable. He couldn't do anything. She had to do everything for him. He just laid in the bed. And he'd got to where she'd been taking care of him all of his life till he was 18 years old. And she said it was getting to the point where was hurting her back. She had to lift him and move him. At 18, it was like she couldn't take care of him any longer. But she would always say, isn't he beautiful? He is so smart. He is so intelligent. Even though he couldn't talk, he couldn't move. Well, when she finally come to the point she had to take him, have him put in an institution because she couldn't do it anymore. He lived 2 months in the institution and died. See what it was? There was a contract between her and the boy. Once that was over, the contract was finished. Just like it says in the Bible, well done, my good and faithful servant. And it was broken by that time. But see, there's a lot of things we don't see. Okay, one way back here.
Dolores, you said you were going to explain who they were that you get the information from.
That what?
That you get your information, who they are.
I did in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
That I get the information from the cases that I work with in my hypnosis. This is where I get all the information that I write about in all of my books. Because I've done thousands and thousands of people, and they all tell me the same things. But I have people who come in to see me who tell me, oh, when I leave here, I'm going to commit suicide. You're my last hope. Talk about no pressure on the therapist, you know. And that's when usually I take them back and I find out they've had maybe a whole series of lifetimes where they had committed suicide. And they were coming back again and again and again, and they didn't get out of it. And so this one man was laying there crying, and he said, I'm doing the same thing all over again. And that was enough to make it sink in. But that's the only thing you have to think about, is they will come back and do it again, so what's the point? But a lot of people say, well, I don't remember when I'm here anyway. Okay, we got time for a few more questions.
Can you say why time is speeding up?
I'll talk about that on Sunday. Okay. We want to know why time is speeding up. My lecture on Sunday has to do with the convoluted universe and the new earth, the development of the new earth. And then I'll get into how time, everything is changing, and what we're moving into. And we're all in the middle of it right now. It's a big adventure. It's happening right now. But I want to keep these two topics separated right now. Okay, I'll get you, and then I'll get the one back there.
So
okay.
Can you draw to you certain souls?
Do what?
can you draw to you certain souls? Like when you, like I just have a sensing at times. I've got quite a few kids, and I just knew when each of them wanted to come in. I just had this overwhelming tap tap. I want to come in.
Well, see, it's what I said. The soul picks you.
So they hassle around you, and they sort of.
No. They'll say, okay, probably past life connections or whatever. You'll say, all right, this is where I want to be. Either you come back with the same people again and again and again. This is what I do in my work. We go over relationships with families and however there is, because there's more karma involving husbands, wives, and children than any other relationship. But you come in with the same group of people, either because you want to be with them, you like to be with them, and you work well together, you've worked well in other lives, or because there's karma. And you've got to pay back the karma, so you make this contract, okay, I'll come back and do it. So, yeah, it's all planned.
I like my karma.
So, as far as drawing the soul, it's the same thing. They pick you.
They picked me, or I
They picked you. And I've had it happen sometimes when, if a baby or a child dies, they'll come right back in the same family.
Yeah.
That happens too. They'd say, well, okay, I guess I've got to go in there and I've got to finish it. And they come back with the same one. Okay, am I way in the back over there? Yeah?
Yes, at the beginning you said that a lot of our problems, blockages, pains, etc., that we're experiencing in this lifetime really come from another lifetime.
What part? I got the first part. What comes from another lifetime?
Problems in this lifetime come from other
Yes.
lifetimes.
That's what I do with my therapy.
Is that what you recommend people that experience that way to resolve all this?
Because I've had people come to me that say they've been going to a psychiatrist for 7 years, have not found the source of their problem, because they said all we're doing is repeating the same thing over and over again and not finding the cause. Well, that's because the psychiatrist is only looking at this life. He doesn't even realize it can be coming from somewhere else. So that's what I do. I take them back to the appropriate lifetime, because you've had hundreds and hundreds of lives, you're going to get something. I take them to the appropriate one to explain what's happening in this lifetime. And that's when we find the connection and we can work it all out. But that's what past life therapy is, going back to the other lifetimes and working the whole thing out. Okay. We got an airplane, okay, yeah?
Is it right to sort of think about health and certainly as healing as something that is the right path forward? Because what I'm thinking is surely sometimes people have to die of a tumour because that's their choice to do so. And
I got part of that. The airplane was blocking out part of it.
Health and healing a path to be desired, or is it appropriate to die of a tumour or
Is it
something?
appropriate for healers to take that away?
Oh, well, my work, you can take it away instantly.
But is it appropriate always to do that? Surely there's a choice for that.
Well, like I said, you have an exit plan. If you decide you want to die that way, if you figured you would learn a lesson from dying from a tumor or whatever. But the ideal state should be perfect health. And you can take it away, because that's what I've found. Most of cancer is caused from suppressed anger, especially in the intestinal areas. Suppressed anger, holding it in, not being able to talk about it, not being able to release it. It sits in there and begins to churn around because you won't let it out. You don't talk to anybody. And after a while, it begins to eat away at the body and creates cancer. But if we can find out what it is, we can take it away if it's appropriate. Maybe in some cases it's not appropriate.
So do we know that though? Do we have the knowledge, like the skill or the wisdom to know when we should and when we shouldn't?
This is what we're trying to get people to understand. You do it to yourself. Why do you do it? When you find out, then you can take it away. That's what this whole new time we're in right now is learning. getting this knowledge back, that you don't have to be sick. You can heal your body. And once you understand that, see how simple it's going to be. But that's part of what my work is, to get more people to know this, that you don't have to be sick. You find out, why did I do that? And people come into me when I'm have sessions with them about, tell me different parts of their body are hurting and where they're having the problems. You can tell instantly what's going on in their life now, because the part of their body reflects what's happening in their life. So that's what part of this therapy is all about, getting to know the person and take it away. Because there's now you want to progress. You don't want to die and have to come back and do it again, the same thing over and over again. Does that make sense?
Do you have any opportunities of working within the prison system to aid any prisoners?
No, I haven't.
Very disturbed.
People ask me, what about criminals? I've not worked with them. I think mostly because they don't understand this. The only way I've worked with them is, we get lots and lots of mail from prisoners. And when they do that, I always send them books free. I have damaged books, and I'm always sending them books free. And a lot of them have written me, and they are so grateful for the books. But I had one young man who wrote me. He was only in his 20s, and he was in there for life for murder. And he writes me this letter, and he says, I cannot take this anymore. I want out of this. And he said, I want to commit suicide. And he said, I just want to know what's going to happen to me if I do. And I don't want a bunch of religious crap. I want to know what's going to happen to me if I do, because I can't take it anymore. So rather than write him a long letter, I did answer the letter, and I sent him this book, Between Death and Life. And it was so funny. A few months later, I get a letter from another prisoner in the same prison who was a friend of his. And he writes me, he says, you don't know what you did for him. He said, he was the man I sent the things to. Can you imagine being in your 20s and you're going to be in prison for the rest of your life? He didn't say I didn't do it or I should be let out. He knew it, but he just said, I can't take it. But anyway, he said the young man, he'd come running down the hall, waving the letter. He said, she answered me, she answered me. And this made me cry when I read the letter, but he said, what happened, this young man set up like a library system. And I kept sending him books, and he was giving the books out to all the other prisoners, and he was a librarian. And he began having discussion groups to where they were all discussing these ideas and metaphysical ideas, and it helped him. I guess it gave him something to focus on, something to live for besides what he was doing. So in that way, I guess I helped him. And I have other ones that say, this turned my life around. I'm never going to get out, but at least they do set up discussion groups. And so I think it's helping in that way anyway. You never know, what you're going to do or say to help somebody. But I have never worked with the prisoners, though. Okay, one here and then back here. Okay, got several hands. Okay.
When you do regressional work with a client, how many past lives would you take them into if they were all traumatic? I've heard, not saying that you do this necessarily, but I've heard of some psychotherapists who do regressional work taking them maybe into 18 lives,
No.
one after another, and they're very traumatized.
No. Takes one session. That's all I have with the person is one session. As I said, you've had hundreds and hundreds of lives. You go back to the appropriate past life. At the most, you may have 2. If it's a short life, they may go to another one. But that's it. And all of the answer is there. And then when I get into this part of the mind that I told you that I work with, it explains everything, and it will explain the whole thing. There's no sense in going through all this trauma.
It would re-traumatize them again, wouldn't it? Unnecessary.
That's not therapy.
No.
No, that's not therapy. You want to help them. You don't want to re-traumatize them. So when I do it, we go to the important life that applies, because they say, if you go to a past life therapist, you know, a hypnotist, and they'll say, well, yeah, it was interesting. I was in ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, but what does that have to do with me now? It was not tied together. It was not all put into a package. And that's what I do, and you can do it in one session. So it doesn't take all of that. You don't have, I will not let them go through and be traumatized. I take care of the people I work with. Okay.
One of my skills is I am a hypnotist, but I missed your training. Is it possible to get the notes or the CDs, or would you recommend one particular book to get some other ideas?
And I don't write about it in my books because it's like anything is dangerous in the wrong hands if you don't know what you're doing. So when I do the class, I go step by step, go through the whole process. I will be doing the class in Sydney. That's quite a ways away from here, though. And that's next weekend. Otherwise, I don't write about it because I just don't want people say they read my books and they say, I know what you do from reading your books. I don't put it in there, but they take a little piece here, a little piece there. But I think it's better if they understand the process. And I don't know when I'm coming back. It's been 5 years since I've been here the last time. Unless you can come to Sydney next weekend. I'm doing some in the States and things like that, but otherwise I don't know of any other way you can do it, you know.
I'll email you, maybe find out the States.
Do what?
I'll email you from your card and find out about the States.
I have lots of classes in the States. I'm going to have one in Los Angeles in February. It depends on where you want to go. Sydney's closer than Los Angeles. Okay, anyway. You can see how I'm very protective. I want to make sure people learn what I'm telling them. I don't want it to be abused. So that's why I want you to take step by step in the class. Okay.
I just want to know how you know which life to go back to. If you say you only go back to one life, how do you find out which life that is?
Your daughter took my class, and she'll know how to do it.
Oh well.
Okay. Because this part of the mind I say that I work with, I let it pick the life. I don't. And the person doesn't have any idea. I let that part decide which is the appropriate lifetime to go back to. And I let it choose. And that's what we do. Okay. And I had some over there too, I think. And I think it's getting down to time.
It is.
Yeah.
For the lady who wants to know why hypnotherapists don't go into prisons is because the authorities won't allow them to. The medical profession will only have psychiatrists.
And the psychiatrists work at them from a different direction.
And that's why.
Uh-huh.
But the
Yeah.
hypnotherapists are not allowed.
But, so I guess the best I'm doing anyway, the best I can do is have my books in there. The chaplains in the prison always ask me to send books for the libraries. So, that's true.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been allowed in there anyway. Okay, I think we're down to time. We had one more way back in the back here, and that's going to be the last one. They have to get ready for the next speaker.
What sort of karma are we creating by our deliberate abuse of animals?
You what?
What sort of karma are we creating by our deliberate misuse of animals?
Of animals? None. Now, if you treat an animal badly, now that's different. You mistreat an animal. But the killing of an animal for food is not, there's no karma with that.
I said deliberate abuse.
If you deliberately abuse an animal, then you are creating karma because you're hurting another living thing. But they said the animal also has a choice. So if it decides, okay, I'm going to come back and I'll be somebody's dinner, then that is nothing wrong with that. But it's always wrong to abuse anything. So if you mean deliberately hurting an animal to see it suffer, that is wrong. But that can take many different forms too. Laboratories experiment on them like that too, so it's hard to say. But it's part of your own karma. You treat everything in nature the way you would want to be treated, because we are abusing the environment and everything. But just because, see, I work a lot with the ashrams and the swamis all over the world, and I respect their beliefs, and if they want to be vegetarian, that's okay. But I've not found anything wrong with eating the meat, but except in my work they say it's better if we stay away from heavy meat right now and focus on fresh fruits and vegetables. But you know, everything can have its pros and its cons and its backs and forths anyway. Okay, I think we run out of time, and you've been a good audience. Thank you. And we have some of my books here, and I'm going to be downstairs and doing book signing after a while too.
And if you want to be on Dolores' mailing list, there is a form out at the front there.
And she said if you want to be on my mailing list, I have a notebook there you can sign, and I'll notify you about anything that's going on.
What's your stand downstairs? What number?
On what?
What number is your stand downstairs?
It's not my stand, it's the Conscious Living booth where they have the magazines.
Magazine, yep.
That's where they're going to have the books. And I'll be down there doing the signing.
Thank you so much.
Would you object to one of the hypnotists from my association explaining your notes to me?
Explaining what?
Your notes, your workshop, one of the girls that went through the training with you?
I don't like other people to teach it because they don't know.
If you enjoyed the show, check out more of our other videos and be sure to subscribe and click the like button. Thank you for listening to the Metaphysical Hour with Dolores Cannon.